Hello, everybody. Today I want to talk about an article that I found in my favorite newspaper, ZEIT. As you know, probably if you followed my blog for some time, ZEIT is an upper end, upper middle class or upper class newspaper that has this Marxist flavor. So it's always like news today. Karl Marx is still dead. So they have these glossy articles about Engels, about Gramsci, and all these old Marxists, and they just pretend this were newsworthy, and they just weave remarks and quotations from Karl Marx and his followers into their everyday articles. Anyway, so this is the paper as you know it. It's directed to the upper class people and our middle class people. However, not the smartest of the smart. It is like the midwit section of society, people who think they are smarter than they are, which I think is hilarious and gives a certain level of humor to that newspaper. And that is the reason why it is my favorite newspaper, I must say. The victim of the article written by Antonia Baum is a columnist for paper Welt, Don Alphonso. He's even separated a bit from Welt. They have a link leading to his blog, but coming from their main page. This is a strategy that his previous employer, the FATS, which also used to be a conservative newspaper for some time and moved to the left, and then he had to leave FATS for whatever reason, I forgot it, and had joined up with Welt. Welt is now also doing this. From the front page there is a link to some crappy blog page that gives the impression that he does not really belong. Welt used to approach the broader spectrum of society, the middle class, while FATS used to be upper middle class academics in the past. Both have actually moved to the left, so they are basically indistinguishable. But well, Welt is at least hosting Don Alphonso, and I think there are some few other columnists that are still somewhat in the conservative corner, surprisingly enough, but I think that's controlled opposition. So for Miss Baum, that link to a blog from the main page of a conservative, or of a paper that used to be conservative, is the major problem. And so she is discussing his followership on Twitter, which is 43,000 followers, not many at all, is it? And for that number, that huge number, according to her, he is a danger. And she is building up this characterization of a threat coming from highly influential people who've gained notoriety over the internet and who are then attacking poor leftists with their social status that is granted on them by respectable publications like Welt or FATS. Thomas Baum is using his real name while presenting doxing as the main threat coming from the conservative side, which I see as a danger coming from whatever side it comes. But she pretends that she is worried about doxing, and then she's constantly referring to his civilian name while he's preferring his pen name, Don Alphonso. I will not repeat his civilian name, even though it's very easy for you to find out, but I think it's very uncautious. I don't like this at all, and therefore I will black out the name. If somebody chooses to go public with a different name, then you stick with that name. Same goes for Tommy Robinson. There are reasons why people want to, reduce the exposure of their private names, particularly in these hostile times. So her claim why she is making an entire article about Don Alphonso is that he is so respectable, that he's gained so much notoriety over the internet, and she quotes 43,000 followers. Yes, 43,000 followers as a major conservative following, and as such a right-wing following, and as such he is the cause of death threats that are threatening the political left. I think these numbers show how difficult it really is for conservatives in Germany to speak out at all, to accumulate any number of people who are interested in the topics. To begin with, it's not just the plight of my personal outlets. This is the problem. No matter if you speak German or if you communicate the issues in German or in other languages, you either don't find enough people who care and who don't stand around what people try to say. And if the communication is in German, then the media, the social media platforms, and variety of other actors in our society have an easy time to portray somebody as a Nazi because there's nobody else looking inside. Of course, there are a few Jews still living in Germany who could correct the hysteria, and there are also, few Roma and so on who could kind of say, well, you're just overdoing it. So English is actually a protection, but it comes at a disadvantage that, of course, people care about their own countries, and a lot of things are going badly in English-speaking countries as well. So his shot is communicating in German in good quality columns that he published on his posts, and yet, despite his notoriety that gained him a smear piece on ZEIT Online, he's only got 43,000 followers. And Ms. Baum claims that of his 43,000 followers on Twitter, a substantial portion were supposedly right-wing extremists. She says that from these followers, rape threats, murder threats, and insults were spreading. And I think a very telling sentence is the one with which she follows her introduction of the situation, and that is, this is the scheme of the story, but you only really understand it when you make it clear, when you get it, who it is that Don Alphonso does not like. And so it is not that there is some rule breaking or that there is some moral transgression on the part of Don Alphonso. No, what really matters is who is affected. So she opens the gates with, I am for the double standard. What matters, why you have to judge something as good or bad, is really a matter on what side you stand. And you are supposed to see things in a different light when the victim is somebody on the conservative side and rather somebody on the left-wing side. Telling, of course, also the topics that she quotes as his topics, and they are the left and the extremist scene. And extremist scene are in quotation marks, like this does not exist. I have made a video about the Verfassungsschutz that is looking into the AfD, our thought crime intelligence agency, and they have a very vague definition of extremism, or at least they have one. As she uses it, apparently there is no such thing as extremism on the political left, and it tends to wonder, okay, so what are they worried about when it comes to extremism? If gulags, if starvation or deliberate starvation like the Holodomor and so on, if that is not to worry about, I mean, what is then to worry about? I mean, if there is no left-wing extremism, what is then in the world? What does exist that one would be worried about when you hear the word extremism? So she is using quotation marks for the word extremist scene. He also does not like the Greens and the Green Shikaria, which I think is a wonderful terminology, or the Green Virtue Shikaria, the identity politics, and the cancel culture. So these are the things that one apparently should not talk about or should not be concerned about. Or people who are concerned about these things should raise your alarm. Additionally, he is worried about the mandatory fees that we have to pay for public broadcasters, as well as about the lying media. The media-induced Mitläufertum. Mitläufertum used to be a word we usually use in history class for to describe the unpolitical population that can't even be bothered when the Nazis take power. People wonder how some grifters and thugs like the Nazis could take power of a place with millions, 80 million of people, and nobody fought against them, or far too few people fought against them, and only really when the war was already going on, there were the phenomena like the White Roses and the assassination attempts. But before that, you had all these Mitläufer people who cannot be bothered with anything. And of course, still today, we are concerned about the people who could make the big change, but apparently can't be bothered with anything, ever. So he is against the media-induced Mitläuferism and the clapping instructions, as well as the state-financed NGOs and their cultural Marxist the cultural Marxist Merkel Party. In brackets, she claims that cultural Marxism were an anti-Semitic fighting word. I've never heard that cultural Marxism is in any ways anti-Semitic, and I can't even make the line, to be honest. It makes absolutely no sense at all. She also says that he sees it as a problem that we have this migration, the mass migration, that he views as demographically and sexually out of control. And you see already what kind of person he is. It's basically the German Katie Hopkins, deeply inappropriate, just how I like it. Then, unsurprisingly, she's dishing up the dog whistle trope, and you probably hear that in America as well, and so on. But here, and I think this is quite funny, they have to sometimes explain things again and again and again that you as English speakers know already. No matter on what side you are, you've probably heard already dog whistle. She's not using that word, but she's introducing new words for the same thing. She tries to present. So in this case, it is the rough civility or the rough bourgeoisie. In German, the word civilian and the word for a bourgeois, upper class person, can be the same, Bürger, and the word rough civilianism, rough civility, rough bourgeoisie could mean anything. This word is ascribed to Wilhelm Heidmeier, whom I don't know. And the explanation she gives of it is a quotation by him that is grammatically flawed somehow. But I think it means that this rough bourgeoisie is the combination of a clean surface with rough rhetoric as well as authoritarian, aggressive attitudes. And she counts, among other things, to it a disregard for weak groups and an emphasis of competition and self-reliance. Competition and self-reliance. That's no evil, okay? And I think what shocks me a lot over the past years is that a lot of the things that everybody used to agree on and I just present as this is evil and this makes you a monster. And then she went through a string of names that I've never heard before, and in brackets she describes their function. And even though I don't like distancing myself from people, I'm always asked, distance yourself from some Islamists or distance yourself from some neo-Nazis and blah, 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 blah. And I really hate it. I always hated it also when I was a feminist, and, there were also these crazy people around, and I thought, you know what, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for myself, and I distance myself from other people. I don't like to distance myself from other people because I don't want other people to just say, well, I don't know this guy. There's actually a quote in the Bible by Jesus that says, if you don't recognize me on earth, I won't recognize you in heaven. I'm not Jesus, but that's kind of a smart attitude. So I don't really want to distance myself from other people a lot because I don't want to be distanced myself. And the functions she describes lets me think that I make an exception here. So the following names are people from which I want to distance myself. So his victims are Laura Sophia Dornheim, a politician of the Greens, Anna-Mareike Krause, a head of central social media management for the public broadcaster Berlin and Brandenburg, for the region Berlin and Brandenburg, Sasman Mahdi, who is supposed to be a scientific right hand of the politician Margarete Bause, also of the Green Party. And by the way, all these media people claim that they have no affinity to the Greens, or that they don't have any bias whatsoever. But you can tell. Miss Bause has a right-wing scientific helper. And this word they are using here, wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter, that's usually an assistant for professors, so somebody who is compiling some of the slides for the next lecture, or somebody who is moving, machines like the slide projector into a room. This kind of person, cleaning the chalkboard. This kind of person is usually a wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter, or an assistant, or a scientific right hand. Sybil Schick, who is an author, Julia Schramm, a politician. She doesn't mention a party. I don't know. I guess it's again the Greens. And an author, Natasha Strobel, that is an expert on right-wing extremism. And additionally, she talked to, Miss Baum talked to the historian Marion Detjen. She belongs to the feminist author collective. Collective is always a red flag for a communist group. So, so there's this collective 10 before 8, whatever they have called themselves 10 before 8. I don't even care to find out. And we're also published on FATS. FATS is the newspaper that Don Alphonso used to work for. As I said, it used to be a conservative newspaper. Now it used also to host 10 before 8, or 10 for 8, which was then renamed or had a spin-off. No, it was then renamed 10 after 8. I don't understand the logic. Anyway, and it is now published on ZEIT. So you can tell that all these newspapers have become extremely sameish. FATS used to be a conservative news site, and a part of that, has this utter communist collective feminism group. And the feminism group has now moved over to the competitor that traditionally served the Marxists on the upper middle class Marxists. The authors of this 10 after 8 collective blog are called by Don Alphonso, among other things, poison snakes, dumb, brash, or have a dumb, brash manner. Low engagement, low competent people from Berlin. And Don Alphonso was supposedly the reason why this collective feminist group had to move away from FATS to ZEIT, because he called them out and he bragged about it in one of his tweets, apparently. Holy moly, the list goes on. So it's Anna, a politician of the SED, now renamed as Die Linke. That is the party that used to run the dictatorship in the East. Hasnain Kasim, an author. Jasmina Kunke, a comedian. I've never heard of. Alex Urban, the head of the activist group I Am Here Against Hate Speech on the Internet. Anne Witzorek, an author. The list could go on, she writes. Yeah, thank goodness she's not stopping it, because I don't even bother about these people. But as I said, I distance myself from all of these people. It's fair enough to say that I distance myself from their views. I have absolutely nothing to do with them, and I apologize if I should ever have sounded like any of these people that I don't even know. She categorizes his victims as female, migration background, belong to the left-wing spectrum, and being financed by the state or state institutions, in brackets and quotation marks, taxpayer money. Oh my goodness, taxpayer money. That comes in quotation marks, so you cannot even say taxpayer money, because that's now also a partisan word. You know, if you say taxpayer money, it's apparently Nazi, and you must not say this. Another aspect, she says, is that his targets don't belong to any institutions that could defend them. However, in the brackets, she had constantly named the institutions these people belong to, like political parties, like major publications, like universities. So what is she talking about? And again, she tries to insert the notion that a double standard is actually a good thing, because she cannot really explain what she's complaining about. She has a hard time to actually say what is the problem. So she says, yes, I do understand that we also have a very acid tone sometimes on the political left. Yes, of course, I cannot deny it. I mean, this is actually something that is uniquely honest on the political left. So I must praise Ms. Baum here. But she says, yeah, well, okay, we also have these polemic writings and so on, but his followers are dangerous. His followers are acting upon it, which is, of course, complete garbage. If you go to a prison ward for murderers and ask somebody who has voted for what, the answer for conservatives would be the case in, I think, no Western country whatsoever. Most murderers vote for the political left, and also, most threats and also most politically motivated murders, particularly those right now that try to advance Islam, which is a political ambition. Practicing Islam is just, is religion, but the ambition to enforce Sharia law in your neighborhood and the ambition to spread the belief, that is political. That is, it is changing the society you live in deliberately. So there are a lot of people, and we are talking about dozens every year, probably even every month already at this point, that are maiming people or that are even killing people for the sake of advancing a political gain. It overshadows almost every other political crimes right now. So it is very rich of her to say that his 43,000 followers are uniquely violent and that therefore he should curtail his tongue, while the left and the Muslims, who usually vote for the left as well, they share most of their ideas actually with the political left, that they can just, do whatever they like. And while my introduction was about false testimony against your neighbor, she doesn't actually have any of these examples. She's using, for example, Natasha Strobel, an ARD expert on racism. And his crime was saying, well, there is no such thing as a racism expert. What do you have to do to become an expert on bullying people? There's no way. Have you done that all your life and therefore you are somehow better and better at bullying, better at racism, and as such become an expert on racism? There is no such a thing as an expertism on racism. And calling people out for fake expertism, that is not alleging something that's not true. It's just actually criticizing somebody. For her, however, for this Natasha Strobel, and also for the writer of this article, Ms. Antonia Baum, it doesn't really make a difference if an accusation is correct or not. And this is the real problem with postmodernism, that these people have no regard for reality whatsoever. They don't care. It's he said, she said, it doesn't really matter if an accusation is actually correct or not. But this should actually be the key factor in assessing a situation. You don't just side with your team no matter what. No, you actually look into what the accusation is about and if it matches the reality or if it doesn't match the reality. If somebody claims to be an expert on something and isn't an expert, then that's an accusation that's actually founded in reality. It's different from accusing somebody of racism but with a quote taken out of context. Sometimes it isn't the right context, but it isn't actually an act of racism. It's not bullying anybody substantially, or it's just banter, for example. Sometimes you banter a bit, and that isn't anywhere near of ostracism or discrimination or any of the things the left usually claims these things are. And another example she gives is Sibel Schick, an author, she says, and she had once written a tweet in which she asks of cis men to be aware of their privilege. For those of you who are not well versed in the social justice stuff, a cis man is basically a man who is born in the body of a man, and these kind of people, these men are born in the body of a man. They should be very aware how privileged they are compared to everybody else. And of course, Don Alphonso was mocking it. Unfortunately, her address was doxed, and she is receiving goods she had not ordered, like pizzas or whatever it is, to her home address. She moved away to a different place. I don't actually think this is the reaction to the pizzas. But anyways, so she moved to a different place, and the new address was also doxed. This is very unfortunate, and of course I'm not supportive of it at all. I also want to distance myself not only from Miss Sybil Schick, but also from the people who sent her pizzas. There are all these poor people in Africa. I mean, think of the children. Send the pizzas to them. She claims that Martin Sellner has made a YouTube video which supposedly has intensified the situation. But the very thing the very thing that Ms. Baum actually accuses conservatives of is the thing that she does here. I mean, she is using Don Alphonso's real name, and she's also calling Martin Sellner a right-wing extremist, which is not true. Martin Sellner had a checkered past, which he openly discussed many times, and he has distanced himself from his past. Everybody had stupid ideas. I voted for Angela Merkel once, so in our youth we do stupid things, and he has done so too. He has changed his mind, and he's very credible in leaving that behind. Before I bore you, so the overall takeaway from this is that she tries to amplify the supposed danger of somebody with a Twitter following of 43,000 people by saying that he is working for Welt, and he is also in the jury of a prize that is somehow associated with our Speaker of the lower house of the Parliament. And this reputation from these places is supposedly amplifying the impact of what he says. So if he criticizes individuals on the political left, then they become the target and the victim of all these right-wing extremists. That's her innuendo. And she suggests, of course, that all of these publications, everybody who has a reputation, the jury of this strange award, everybody he's worked with that could give him some credentials, that they should withdraw, of course, their cooperation with Don Alphonso. So what we are seeing here is they are sending the Death Eaters, the reputation Death Eaters around to ostracize members of the public. And of course, to send a clear message that conservatism has no place in this country whatsoever. Everything is supposedly Nazi and Hitler and blah, 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 blah. They know it's not true. They don't care if it's a lie or not, because reality doesn't matter to them. And I think this is not just fancy postmodernism. This is just a character flaw. There are people, they don't even lie. They just don't care about reality enough. And they don't care if they hurt other people. They're not even deliberately trying to hurt other people. It's like, yeah, they are thinking strategically, and if people get harmed, then they get harmed. It's just, that's their attitude. I think they are careless people, totally immoral. And of course, they can't even hear the word moral. If I quote the Ten Commandments, they make me out to be fundamentalist or whatever, some zealot, which is of course complete garbage. But these people are utterly careless, and they couldn't care less if Mr. Sellner gets hurt, or if Don Alphonso gets hurt. It's all strategic. It's all about keeping jobs for their friends. In political parties and all these NGOs, taxpayer-funded places. It is all about keeping money, and this is their more backbone. And meanwhile, they stand in front of you, swag their fingers, and constantly make you feel ashamed. I think you've heard a lot of the things that I've discussed in this video before, but she gives a lot of insight. She's very blunt, so you can tell kind of how these people work, and what propaganda mechanisms they use to ostracize others. That was it for today, and I'll see you soon.